The ice plains of Verokar 3 stretched endlessly beneath twin moons, a frozen wasteland where even the hardiest of the galaxy's species feared to tread. The blizzard had been raging for 3 planetary rotations now. Winds howling at velocities that could strip flesh from bone. In the midst of this white hell, a lone figure trudged forward, dragging a makeshift sled behind her. Mara Icebinder's breath came in frozen gasps, each exhale crystallizing instantly in the -70-degree air. Her thermal suit, designed for extreme environments, was already failing. Warning lights blinked red inside her visor, but she ignored them. Behind her, secured to the emergency sled, were 7 Ketheran cubs, small, furred beings no larger than earth dogs, their violet eyes wide with terror. The Kytherans were one of the galaxy's protected species, renowned for their empathic abilities and gentle nature. Their colony ship had crashed 2 kilometers from the human research outpost, and Mara had been the only one close enough to respond. The adult Kitharans hadn't survived the impact. Only the cubs remained, and they would freeze within hours without shelter. Just a little further, Mara muttered through gritted teeth, though she knew the outpost was still 5 kilometers away. The wind drove ice particles into her suit's joints, making every step agony. Her muscles screamed in protest, but she kept moving. Humans didn't abandon the helpless. It wasn't in their nature. Unknown to Mara, she was being watched. High above the blizzard, a Vorathian dreadnought hung in geosynchronous orbit. On its bridge, Commander Varric Ironclaw observed the thermal signature of the human below, his amber eyes narrowing in what his species considered deep thought. The Vorathians were apex predators, from a world of endless jungles and brutal competition warriors who valued strength above all else. "The human still moves," his tactical officer reported, his translator rendering the growling speech into standard galactic. Impressive durability for such a small creature. No. Varroc's clawed hand tightened on his command throne's armrest. He had been tracking this human colony for weeks, assessing whether they posed a threat to Vorathian expansion in this sector. Humans were relative newcomers to galactic society, weak individually, lacking natural weapons or armor, from a soft world with comfortable gravity and breathable air. They should have been easy prey. Insignificant. Yet this one female dragged 7 cubs through conditions that would kill most Vorathian soldiers. "How long has she been moving?" Varric demanded. 17 standard hours, Commander, without rest. Her suit's power supply is at 4%. She should have collapsed hours ago. Varroc rose from his throne, his 2.5-meter frame towering over the bridge crew. "This makes no sense. The cubs aren't even her species. Why doesn't she abandon them and save herself?" No one answered. Among Vorathians, such behavior was incomprehensible. The weak existed to feed the strong. Sacrifice for others was illogical, especially for beings of another species. Below, Mara fell to her knees. The world swam before her eyes, and she knew she was entering the final stages of hypothermia. Her hands were numb inside her gloves, and she could no longer feel her feet. The sled's tether had frozen to her harness, and when she tried to move forward, her legs refused to cooperate. The cubs huddled together behind her, their empathic waves washing over her consciousness. Fear, cold, confusion, but also something else. Trust. They trusted her. These small beings, orphaned and terrified, believed she would save them. Mara forced herself to stand. She took one step, then another. Her vision tunneled, darkness creeping in from the edges. The outpost beacon was somewhere ahead, but she couldn't see it anymore through the white wall of snow. "Sorry, little ones," she whispered, her words lost in the wind. She collapsed face first into the snow. On the Vorathian dreadnought, alarms suddenly blared. Varroc stared at the screen, watching the thermal signature dim. Something stirred in his chest, an unfamiliar sensation that his warrior training had never prepared him for. This human had fought against impossible odds. Not for glory or territory, but for cubs that weren't even her own species. She had given everything, and she was about to die. No, Varrock growled, his voice deepening into the subsonic range that denoted an Alpha's command. This will not stand. His crew stared at him in shock as he strode toward the transport bay. Commander, what are you? Prepare my armor. The roar echoed through the ship, a sound of authority so primal that every Vorathian on board felt their hackles rise in automatic submission. And ready the atmospheric shuttle. Now, minutes later, Varrock's shuttle tore through the blizzard like a meteor, its shields parting the storm. The Vorathian commander, clad in full combat armor, activated his suit's external speakers as he descended. What happened next would become legend throughout the galaxy. Varrock Ironclaw, supreme commander of the Vorathian Third Fleet, stood at the edge of the landing ramp and released a roar that had toppled empires. It was the sound of an apex predator claiming territory, the battle cry of a species that had conquered 100 worlds. The roar was amplified by his armor's speakers, projected across all frequencies, from subsonic to ultrasonic. The blizzard stopped, not gradually, not slowly. The winds ceased, as if a switch had been thrown. Snow hung suspended in the air for a heartbeat before falling straight down. The storm itself, as if recognizing the voice of something greater, fell silent. Varrock didn't pause to marvel. He leaped from the shuttle, his powerful legs carrying him to where Mara lay. He scooped her up with surprising gentleness, then grabbed the sled's tether. The cubs chittered in alarm, but fell silent when they sensed no threat. "You will not die here, human," Varrock rumbled, his translator rendering his words. Not after such courage. He carried Mara and her charges to the shuttle. As medical drones swarmed to stabilize her, Varrock watched the human's face, peaceful despite her ordeal. She had dragged every cub through the blizzard. She had given everything for beings weaker than herself. Perhaps humans were weak individually. Perhaps they lacked claws and fangs. But Varrock understood now why this young species was rapidly earning respect across the galaxy. They possessed something more valuable than physical strength, an indomitable will, and a refusal to abandon those in need. As the shuttle climbed back toward orbit, the blizzard resumed its fury. But Varrock paid it no mind. He had witnessed something profound today, something that would change the Vorathian Empire's entire approach to humanity. The weak, he realized, could make the strong stronger, and a species that would sacrifice everything for cubs not their own was not one to be conquered. They were one to be allied with.